We are in the Cameron Flora Park today. It's a very beautiful park. The flowers going up this mountain, it always, every time I come here, it feels to me like an Eden. Now, yes, it depends on what time of the year you come, understandably, how the flowers, which flowers are blooming, how the flowers are blooming. They swap flowers around. So in this stage it's very pink. And yeah, that's kind of, but this is the outdoor side, there's an indoor side as well. The reason I wanted to record John chapter 3 here is for a simple reason. This is for me a really beautiful place. Really, really, really beautiful. I mean, all the flowers and the beauty of this. And John chapter 3 is one of those chapters where it speaks of the new birth. It speaks of God's love. It speaks of these things which are very beautiful. It's not just that the rest of the Bible doesn't speak about it, but this chapter really goes into depth concerning the love of God and ultimately Jesus and new birth and all of those things. Okay, so for that reason, I wanted to be in a beautiful place to record this chapter, and therefore we are here today. So I hope you'll enjoy it. We'll record a bit more, just walking around and things like that, and put that up as well. So enjoy. There are a few, well, let's put it like this way, easy kind of verses to remember in the Bible, important verses. So John chapter 3 verse 16 we know is a very well quoted verse, misquoted most of the time, but still a very well quoted verse. But there's other verses. It starts chapter 3 of something, so like Genesis 3 verse 15 and Exodus 3 verse 14. So kind of easy to remember. 3, 15 Genesis, 14 Exodus, 16 John. So in 3:15 of Genesis, it is about the one who will come and destroy the snake. 3:14 of Exodus is about the I am, when God gave his name, which is quoted so often here in the Gospel of John. We will still see that. And then 3:16, for God so loved the world, die betaalt was wil meer, want so lief het God die wêreld gehad. Okay, these are so just a little bit, but we're not there at 3:16 yet, so we will start with 3 verse 1. Now there was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Jews. In the Gospel of John, we often get this concept of a growth. We will see this concept of a growth in chapter 4 with the Samaritan woman. When Jesus tells her, you'll give her water and living water, she didn't understand. In the beginning, like a man, are you greater than Jacob? You know, make Jacob's a man, are you greater than him? She didn't think so. And then, oh, I see you're a prophet. And then later asking them, are you maybe the Messiah? And then they all understand ultimately that he is not just the Messiah, but he's the Savior of the world. Not one to set them as free from the Romans, but the Savior of the world. Okay, so there's that growth. There's a growth of the blind man. I just need a quick, as far as I remember, it's chapter 9. Yes, the chapter 9, the growth in the faith or understanding of the blind man. And so you have a Samaritan woman that's even kicked out by her own people because of having 5 husbands, etc. Then you have a blind man who is outside of society, ultimately. And the blind man as well as a man, he's a prophet and then a Lord. So you see in this outcast from the Gentile society and outcast from society because of blindness, in one chapter there's a growth in their understanding of who Jesus is. When we get to chapter 3, or when we are now in chapter 3 and at the story of Nicodemus, we see there's growth as well. But we don't see all of that growth in this chapter. We don't see really any kind of growth in this chapter. It takes nearly the whole book for this growth to happen. Right? Here he comes to Jesus. Later on we're going to meet him again, just a little bit, where he just sort of speaks up. But just, and they ask him, are you one of them? Like, oh, okay, quiet down again. But at the end, when Jesus is dead, he, with Joseph of Arimathea, comes to collect the body, and he's the one who provides all the balsam, the myrrh for the burial. Right, when he couldn't get anything out of that. So you see there, it's a book-long growth. Now, for the disciples themselves, it was a book-long growth. They start in the first chapter where they're called, and they only really understand, actually maybe even only actually in Acts, after outpouring of the Spirit. But you can say the end of Genesis, that they know, their understanding, now they know, their understanding grew. It took as well the whole, like for Nicodemus, like for the disciples, a whole book of growth. And for those getting this, receiving this gospel as well, there was this pleading of you, like they grew, right? You can look at the Samaritan who can look at the blind man. So like that growth can happen, but we'll see how that growth will happen, because that growth needs to start with something, right? It doesn't even start with the seed. It starts with the soil, the right preparation of the soil, and that is what we're going to see in this chapter. So here comes Nicodemus, a ruler of the Jews, not just any guy, a ruler of the Jews. So very important, spiritual and religious leader. He's one of them. Okay. Now I kind of feel that Nicodemus, right? All these people, they didn't just write their books. They had to have people kind of support them. That's kind of a normal way of people do it even today. You know, write books. If you big writers, they get advances from their publishers, and then they write, and then they give, and they get more, etc., etc. Right? That is kind of so. There's as well. These people had to look at Theophilus providing for him. Most likely, I would say Peter had Mark, his family had money, provide for him. Matthew, he came from a higher middle class kind of what. So he had people as well, a group of people to provide for him. Who were John to provide for him? And I believe it was Nicodemus. And I believe that, and it's not based upon, again, like I said, belief is not based upon just thin air, right? Belief based upon facts, which you can see from this book. And that Nicodemus actually was the one to allow for John to mention this, and to show this growth, so as that Nicodemus, that is in this way through this gospel, as well address his fellow leaders. Okay, so he being an example of a leader growing in his faith, right? This now, and then understandably providing funds for John, paying for him or helping him so that he could write this gospel, not in the writing part, but in the financial part of this. I wanted to look at that as well. So that kind of all makes sense to me. I think I can explain it in logical sense. It can make logical sense, because if yes, you can say so. Now, if this book was later written at a later stage, Nicodemus already gone, then then there's no thing about this. But I mean, then he could have mentioned. But if Nicodemus was mentioned at an early stage as well, right, you can see that he had to give. And Nicodemus, by the time, because when he came for Jesus' body at the end, right, so clearly by then he was not hiding anymore. Okay, so there was no reason for Nicodemus. Now, you can't say, okay, because Nicodemus' name is mentioned here, he was one of the leaders, he would have wanted his name to be hidden, that people would know about him, kind of idea, for safety reasons. But then you forget about the fact that he came for Jesus' body. He went to Pilate, like Joseph of Arimathea, to ask for Jesus' body. They knew. By then they knew. Okay, so there was no point in hiding. So that does not prove that it was written at the late stage. I feel that this is actually proof that Nicodemus is the one sponsoring this, and as well he is allowing for John to use this so as to address his fellow leaders. Okay, that is what he's a ruler of the Jews.